The encounter. The emergency lighting in Sector 7 cast everything in shades of red and shadow. Marcus Chin pressed himself against the cold metal wall of the abandoned research facility, his medical kit clutched tight against his chest. Outside, the sounds of combat had finally faded, leaving only the low hum of the colony's failing power grid and the distant groan of damaged structures settling. He shouldn't have stayed behind. The evacuation shuttles had left 3 hours ago, taking the last of the civilian miners and non-essential personnel off Kepler 442b before the Valerian Empire's fleet arrived. But Marcus was a field medic, and field medics didn't abandon their posts while people might still need help. Even if those people were supposed to be his enemies. The crash had shaken the entire southern section of the colony. Marcus had watched from his hiding spot as the Valerian fighters spiraled out of control, clipping the refinery tower before slamming into the crystalline plains beyond the facility. No one could survive that kind of impact. He'd been certain of it. Then he'd seen her walking through the smoke. She moved like liquid mercury, each step deliberate despite the obvious injury to her side. Her armor, that distinctive Valerian design with its flowing lines and bioluminescent panels, was cracked and sparking. Dark fluid, blood he assumed, stained her left side, leaving a trail across the dusty ground. She'd made it maybe 200 meters from the crash site before collapsing against the facility's outer wall. Marcus had watched her for a full minute, his heart hammering against his ribs. Every survival instinct screamed at him to stay hidden, to let nature take its course. The Valorians had come to claim the colony's rare earth deposits, had destroyed 3 human settlements in the process. They weren't here to negotiate. They were conquerors. But she was injured. And he was a medic. He'd cursed himself the entire way across the open ground, expecting plasma fire to cut him down at any moment. Instead, he'd found her propped against the wall, conscious but fading, those strange amber eyes tracking his approach with the wariness of a wounded predator. Now, 30 minutes later, he had her inside the facility's medical bay, sprawled across an examination table that had seen better days. The room smelled of antiseptic and dust, the equipment outdated but functional. Marcus had powered up the vital signs monitor, which was currently beeping its confusion at readings it didn't recognize. Her physiology was different enough from human that half his instruments gave error messages. But biology was biology. Trauma was trauma. And that wound needed immediate attention. "This is going to hurt," Marcus said, preparing the dermal regenerator. His voice sounded too loud in the quiet room. The alien woman's eyes focused on him with startling intensity. When she spoke, her voice was smoother than expected, the translator implant in her throat converting her language into accented but perfect English. "Pain is irrelevant. Proceed." Marcus hesitated, meeting that amber gaze. Up close, she was striking in a way that made his medical objectivity difficult to maintain. Her features were humanoid but refined, as if someone had taken human proportions and perfected them. High cheekbones, sharp jaw, skin that shimmered faintly with an iridescence he couldn't quite explain. Her hair, a deep midnight blue, was matted with sweat and blood. But it was those eyes that held him. Not just their color but the intelligence behind them. The calculation. She was assessing him just as thoroughly as he was assessing her. "You're Valerian military," he said, stating the obvious as he began cutting away the damaged armor plating. "Special operations, judging by the armor design." "Astute observation, human." Pause. "You are a medical practitioner." "Field medic, 3rd Colonial Defense Corps." Marcus Chin. He wasn't sure why he offered his name. Maybe because if they were going to kill each other, they should at least know who they were killing. Kyra Val Thorin. Centurion, 1st Strike Division. She watched him work, her body tense but controlled. "Why did you not leave me to die?" Was a fair question. Marcus focused on exposing the wound, peeling away the final layer of her uniform. The injury beneath made him wince. Whatever had hit her had burned through her armor and deep into the tissue. The edges were cauterized, which had probably saved her life, but the damage was extensive. "Because that's not what we do," he said finally. "Humans, I mean. We help people who need help. Even people who are trying to kill us. It's stupid and illogical and has gotten a lot of us killed over the centuries." He reached for the regenerator. "But it's also what makes us human." Kyra was silent for a moment. When she spoke again, there was something different in her tone. Not softness exactly, but curiosity. "Your species is strange. We have observed your conflicts, your tendency toward self-sacrifice for others. It is considered a weakness in Valerian culture." "Yeah, well, we've got a lot of weaknesses." Marcus activated the regenerator, watching as it began knitting the damaged tissue. But we're still here, so maybe some weaknesses are actually strengths in disguise. The regenerator hummed as it worked, sending microscopic repair drones into the wound. Marcus monitored the process on his handheld scanner, making minute adjustments. Kyra's physiology was responding, but not in the way he expected. Her cells were adapting to the treatment in real time, her body working with the technology in ways that should have been impossible. "Your healing factor is remarkable," he murmured, more to himself than to her. "Valerian warriors are genetically enhanced. Strength, speed, regeneration, all optimized for combat effectiveness." She shifted slightly on the table, testing the limits of the treatment. "We are bred for war, created in laboratories rather than born. It is the way of my people." Marcus looked up from his scanner, meeting her eyes. "Created? You're saying you're not naturally born? I am what your kind would call engineered. The Valerian Empire perfected genetic manipulation millennia ago. We design our soldiers to match specific combat requirements." Her expression was unreadable. "I am third-generation enhancement. Faster and stronger than baseline Valorians, with augmented tactical processing and accelerated healing. There are 37 of us in my designation. We do not have families. We have purpose." The casual way she said it made Marcus's stomach turn. He'd heard rumors about Valerian enhancement programs, but hearing it firsthand was different. He thought about his own family back on Earth, his mother's messages that he played when he needed to remember why he was out here, his sister's complaints about her university courses, his father's terrible jokes. The messy, complicated web of relationships that made life worth living. "That sounds lonely," he said quietly. Kyra's eyes narrowed. "Loneliness is a human concept. We do not experience it." "I don't believe that." Marcus returned his attention to the wound, adjusting the regenerator's settings. "You might not call it loneliness, but everyone needs connection. Even warriors bred for war. You presume to understand my experience?" "No. I presume that consciousness, any consciousness, comes with needs beyond just survival and purpose." He gestured at the healing wound. "Case in point, your body is healing faster than it should even with my equipment. You know why? Because you want to survive. Not because of programming or purpose, but because something in you recognizes that life is worth preserving." Kyra was silent, her amber eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. Finally she spoke, her voice softer than before. "You are unlike the humans I have encountered in combat." "Yeah, well, combat doesn't really bring out the best in people. Or aliens." He checked the scanner again. "The wound is closing nicely. You've got some scarring, but with your healing factor that should fade in a few days. The internal damage is more concerning. You've got microfractures in what I think is your equivalent of ribs, and there's some organ damage I can't fully assess with this equipment. How long until I am combat ready? If you were human? Weeks. But with your physiology?" Marcus shook his head. "Maybe 3 days if you rest and don't do anything stupid like try to fight your way off this colony." "Unacceptable. My mission parameters require." "Your mission parameters nearly got you killed." Marcus surprised himself with the force in his voice. "Listen, I don't care about your war or your empire or whatever orders you're following. Right now you're a patient and my job is to keep you alive. So you're going to rest, let your body heal, and then you can go back to trying to conquer the galaxy or whatever it is you people do." For a long moment, Kyra simply stared at him. Then, incredibly, the corner of her mouth twitched in what might have been the beginning of a smile. "Careful human. You speak to a Valerian centurion with remarkable disrespect. Many have died for less." "Yeah, well, add me to the list." Marcus finished with the regenerator and began applying a protective seal to the wound. "Besides, you're in no condition to kill anyone right now, so I'm feeling pretty safe with my disrespect." "You should not." Something in her tone made him look up. Kyra was watching him with those amber eyes, and in them he saw something that sent a chill down his spine. Not threat exactly, but warning. Acknowledgement of danger. "What do you mean?" he asked carefully. Kyra shifted on the table, the movement fluid despite her injuries. "I told you I am third-generation enhancement, Medic Chin. What I did not tell you is what that designation means." She held up one hand, and Marcus watched in fascination as her fingers began to glow with a faint blue light. "We are not merely physically enhanced. We are psionically active. The Empire's greatest weapon." The medical equipment around them began to hum, power fluctuating. Marcus felt a pressure in his mind like someone pushing gently against his thoughts. Not invasive, just present, demonstrating capability. "We can manipulate energy fields, influence biological systems, Read intent if not specific thoughts. Kyra lowered her hand and the pressure faded. I could have killed you the moment you approached me. Even injured, even dying, I could have stopped your heart with a thought. Marcus swallowed hard, his mouth suddenly dry. Why didn't you? Because, Kyra said, her expression thoughtful, you did something unexpected. You helped me when you could have let me die. You showed mercy when you could have shown vengeance. She sat up slowly, testing her newly healed side. And because, Medic Marcus Chin, I am beginning to suspect that humanity's so-called weakness might actually be a strength worth understanding. Before Marcus could respond, the facility's proximity alarm began to wail. His scanner immediately lit up with contact signatures. Multiple vehicles approaching from the north, moving fast. Military configuration. Valerian search parties, Kyra said, already sliding off the table. She swayed slightly, steadying herself against the examination bed. They will be looking for survivors from my crash. And they will not be pleased to find me in human company. Will they kill you? No. But they will certainly kill you. She looked at him, those amber eyes serious. You should run, Marcus Chin. Find somewhere to hide until they pass. Marcus looked at the scanner, at the approaching signatures, then back at Kyra. He thought about running, about hiding, about survival. Then he thought about his oath as a medic, about his belief in helping those who needed help regardless of who they were. And he thought about how, in the last hour, he'd seen something in Kyra's eyes that looked remarkably like respect. Maybe even the beginning of friendship. Or, he said, making possibly the stupidest decision of his life, we could work together to make sure neither of us dies today. Your choice, Centurion. Kyra stared at him, and for the first time since they'd met, she smiled. It was a small thing, barely there, but it transformed her face. Careful human, she said, echoing her earlier warning. But this time there was warmth in her voice. I'm not just any woman. Helping me might just change everything you thought you knew about this war. Marcus grabbed his medical kit and what supplies he could carry. Good. I was getting bored with the way things were anyway. The alarm continued to wail as they prepared to face whatever came next. Together. The Alliance. The facility's basement was a maze of service corridors and equipment rooms that smelled of machine oil and stale air. Marcus led the way, his scanner held out in front of him like a dowsing rod, tracking the Valerian search party's movements above them. Kyra moved behind him with surprising grace for someone who'd been near death an hour ago, her footsteps nearly silent on the metal grating. They're spreading out, Marcus whispered, watching the heat signatures on his scanner split into 3 groups. Systematic search pattern. Professional. First Strike Division does not send amateurs, Kyra said. Her voice was steady, but Marcus could hear the strain underneath. The healing process was taking its toll, her enhanced biology burning through energy reserves at an alarming rate. They will check every level, every room. We have perhaps 20 minutes before they reach this sector. Marcus stopped at an intersection, consulting his mental map of the facility. He'd spent 3 months stationed here before the evacuation order, enough time to learn the layout. There's an emergency exit that leads to the mining tunnels. Old shaft, mostly collapsed, but there might be enough clearance to get through. And if there is not? Then we're trapped underground with a Valerian kill squad hunting us. Marcus glanced back at her, managing a grim smile. But hey, at least it'll be exciting. Kyra's amber eyes glinted in the dim emergency lighting. Your species' capacity for humor in dire circumstances is remarkable. It's either laugh or scream, and screaming uses too much oxygen. He started moving again, following the corridor toward the south wing. Besides, I find that impending doom really brings out my comedic timing. They descended 2 more levels, the air growing colder and staler. The emergency lighting down here was intermittent, creating pools of shadow between the functioning panels. Marcus's breath misted in the chill, while Kyra seemed unaffected by the temperature. Another benefit of her enhancements, probably. Above them, something heavy moved across the floor. Boots on metal. Multiple sets. Kyra held up a hand, her head tilted in concentration. 6 soldiers. Level 2. Moving in formation. She closed her eyes and Marcus felt that strange pressure again, her psionic abilities reaching out, sensing. They are agitated. Confused by my absence from the crash site. Can they sense you the way you sense them? No. Psionic abilities are rare even among enhanced Valorians. They do not know what I am capable of. She opened her eyes, focusing on him. But they will have trackers, biological scanners. Your human signature will stand out clearly. Marcus considered this an idea forming. What if we use that? Explain. They're looking for you, right? A downed Valerian warrior. But if they keep detecting a human signature moving away from where they're searching, they might assume I'm fleeing, trying to escape. He pulled up a schematic on his scanner. There's a junction ahead where the corridors split. I could lead them west while you head for the mining tunnels. That is tactically unsound. You would be captured or killed. Maybe. But you'd escape, which means this whole rescue mission wouldn't be for nothing. Marcus started to move, but Kyra's hand shot out, gripping his arm with surprising strength. Even injured, she was far stronger than any human. No, she said firmly. We proceed together. Kyra, be reasonable. I am being perfectly reasonable. You saved my life, Marcus Chen. Among my people, that creates a debt that cannot be dismissed. Her eyes held his, intense and unwavering. More than that, you have shown me something I did not expect to find in a human. Something that deserves protection, not sacrifice. What's that? Honor. True honor, not the hollow kind recited in military academies, but the kind that acts when no one is watching, that helps when there is no benefit. She released his arm but didn't step back. The Valerian Empire teaches that humans are weak, emotional, prone to sentiment over logic. But your actions suggest a different truth. Your weakness is also your strength, your refusal to abandon principle even when survival demands it. Marcus felt heat rise to his face. I'm just a medic doing his job. No. You are considerably more than that. Kyra moved past him, taking the lead. Colme. If we are to survive, we must combine your knowledge of this facility with my combat capabilities. Separately, we are vulnerable. Together, we have a chance. They moved deeper into the facility, the sounds of the search party echoing through the ventilation system. Marcus directed them through maintenance passages and equipment rooms, avoiding the main corridors. His scanner showed the Valorians spreading out, their search grid tightening. They're getting closer, he muttered, watching 3 signatures converge on their level. We need to move faster. Agreed. But you are slowing our pace. Kyra stopped, turning to face him. Your human endurance is limited. Yeah, well, not all of us are genetically engineered super soldiers. Marcus's lungs were burning, his legs aching from the rapid descent and constant movement. He'd been running on adrenaline and stubbornness for hours, and his body was starting to protest. Kyra studied him for a moment, then made a decision. We will rest. Briefly. She guided him into a small equipment room, closing the door behind them. The space was cramped, filled with inactive machinery and storage containers. She pointed to a crate. Sit. Conserve your energy. Marcus collapsed onto the crate gratefully, his chest heaving. Kyra remained standing, her attention focused on the door, listening. In the confined space, he could see the toll the healing process was taking on her. Her iridescent skin had lost some of its luster, and there were fine lines of strain around her eyes. You need to rest too, he said. That wound will heal. My biology is designed for rapid recovery. But even as she said it, she swayed slightly, catching herself against the wall. Marcus stood, offering her the crate. Sit down before you fall down. Doctor's orders. You are not a doctor. You said you were a medic. Medic's orders then. Sit. For a moment he thought she'd refuse. Then surprisingly she smiled, that same small transformative expression he'd seen earlier, and sat. You are remarkably commanding for someone so physically inferior. It's the confidence. I fake it really well. Marcus pulled out a ration bar from his kit, breaking it in half and offering her part. Eat this. Your body needs fuel for the healing process. Kyra examined the bar with obvious skepticism. What is this substance? Compressed nutrients, proteins, and a bunch of chemicals I can't pronounce. It tastes like cardboard mixed with regret, but it'll keep you going. He bit into his half, forcing himself to chew and swallow. Welcome to human military cuisine. She took a cautious bite, her expression going through several fascinating changes. This is profoundly unpleasant. Yep. But it's got everything your body needs. Probably. Marcus leaned against the machinery, his scanner still tracking the search party's movements. They had maybe 5 minutes before the next sweep reached this section. Marcus, Kyra said after a moment of silence. Why did you really stay behind? The truth. He considered lying, offering some heroic excuse about duty and honor. But something about her directness demanded honesty in return. Because 3 weeks ago, we evacuated a settlement under Valerian attack. I was on the last shuttle out. There was a girl, maybe 8 years old, who got separated from her family in the chaos. He closed his eyes, the memory still fresh. I saw her through the window as we lifted off. just standing there calling for her mother. And we left her. You had no choice. The settlement was under bombardment. I know. Logically, I know that. But I still see her face. Marcus opened his eyes, meeting Kyra's gaze. So when I saw you crash, when I saw you hurt and alone, I guess I couldn't be the person who walks away again. Not when I had the choice to help. Kyra was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer than he'd heard it. That child. What happened to her? I don't know. The settlement was... There wasn't much left after your people were done with it. He didn't say it with accusation, just stating fact. Maybe she made it to a shelter. Maybe someone else got her out. I tell myself that most days. I am sorry for your loss, Marcus Chin. And the strange thing was, she sounded like she meant it. War creates such casualties on both sides. The Empire teaches us not to consider them, to focus on strategic objectives. But perhaps... She paused, seeming to struggle with something. Perhaps that is why we continue fighting wars. Because we forget that every casualty has a story. A Marcus Chin who will remember them. Before he could respond, his scanner erupted with proximity alerts. Multiple signatures, converging fast on their position. They've found us, Marcus said, already moving toward the door. No. Kyra stood, her hand glowing with that blue psionic light. They have found my energy signature. I can no longer mask it, the healing process is too demanding. She positioned herself between Marcus and the door. When they breach, stay behind me. Kyra, you can't fight them in your condition. I am a Centurion of the 1st Strike Division. This is what I was designed for. She looked back at him, and in her eyes he saw determination and something else, concern. For him. Trust me, Marcus. As I have trusted you. The door exploded inward, metal shrieking as it tore from its hinges. 3 Valerian soldiers stormed in, weapons raised, their armor gleaming even in the dim light. They moved with perfect coordination, a unit accustomed to operating as one. Then they saw Kyra and everything stopped. Centurion Val Thorin, the lead soldier said, his voice filtered through his helmet. You are alive. We detected your distress beacon and... He stopped, noticing Marcus. You are in the presence of a human combatant. This human is under my protection, Kyra said, her voice carrying absolute authority. Stand down. Centurion, our orders are to eliminate all human resistance in this sector. We cannot. I said stand down. The blue light around Kyra's hands intensified, and Marcus felt the air crackle with energy. The machinery in the room began to hum, responding to her psionic field. I am invoking privilege of command. This human has provided critical medical assistance and is therefore exempt from elimination protocols. The soldiers exchanged glances, clearly uncertain. Centurion, we must report this too. What happened next occurred so fast that Marcus almost missed it. The lead soldier's hand twitched toward his weapon. Kyra moved, her injured body suddenly fluid and terrifyingly fast. Blue energy flared, and the soldier flew backward, slamming into the wall hard enough to dent the metal. The other 2 soldiers raised their weapons, but Kyra was already there, moving between them like a storm. One soldier tried to fire, but his weapon simply stopped working, the energy cells in his rifle suddenly drained. The other attempted hand-to-hand combat, but despite her injuries, Kyra was faster, stronger, better trained. Within seconds, all 3 soldiers were disarmed and disabled, groaning on the floor. Marcus stood frozen, his medical kit clutched to his chest, trying to process what he'd just witnessed. Kyra stood among the fallen soldiers, breathing hard, her wound bleeding again from the exertion. She turned to look at him, and in her eyes he saw an apology. I told you, she said, her voice strained. I am not just any woman. Yeah, Marcus managed, finding his voice. I'm starting to get that impression. Kyra swayed, and Marcus was moving before he thought about it, catching her arm, steadying her. You just tore open everything I worked to heal, you idiot. Necessary. They would have killed you. She leaned on him, heavier than she'd admit. The mining tunnels. We must go now. More will come. Marcus grabbed one of the fallen soldier's rifles. Not that he knew how to use Valerian technology, but it felt better than being unarmed, and helped Kyra toward the door. Behind them, one of the soldiers was groaning, reaching for his communicator. They had minutes, maybe less. The mining tunnels were exactly as bad as Marcus remembered, dark, partially collapsed, the air thick with dust that made breathing difficult. But they offered a way out, a route that didn't involve fighting through the entire Valerian search party. Marcus activated his scanner's flashlight mode, the beam cutting through the darkness ahead. Kyra was fading fast. The fight had taken everything she had left, and now she was leaning heavily on him, her breathing labored. Marcus could feel fresh blood soaking through the seal he'd applied earlier. Not much further, he lied, having no idea how far they actually had to go. Just keep moving. Marcus. Her voice was weak. If I fall, you must leave me. Promise me. Not a chance. We've come this far together, we're finishing together. He adjusted his grip on her, taking more of her weight. Besides, I didn't fix you up just to let you die in a mining tunnel. That would be terrible for my professional reputation. Despite everything, she laughed. It was a small, pained sound, but it was genuine. You are absurd. Yeah, I get that a lot. They stumbled forward through the darkness, Marcus's scanner showing the tunnel extending ahead. Behind them, he could hear sounds of pursuit. The Valorians had found their trail. But ahead, he could see something else. A faint glow, natural light filtering through a gap in the collapsed section. There, he gasped, his own strength nearly spent. The surface. We're almost there. The gap was narrow, barely wide enough for a human to squeeze through, let alone a wounded Valorian warrior. Marcus pushed through first, emerging onto the crystalline plains under Kepler 442b's twin suns. The light was blinding after the darkness of the tunnels, but he'd never been so happy to see it. He turned back, reaching for Kyra. She was stuck, her armor catching on the rocks. Behind her, lights appeared in the tunnel, pursuit getting closer. Come on, Marcus urged, grabbing her hands and pulling. You can make it. Just a little more. Kyra gritted her teeth, pushing with her legs while Marcus pulled. For a terrible moment she didn't move. Then, with a grinding sound of metal on stone, she came free, tumbling out onto the plains with Marcus. They lay there for a moment, both gasping, looking up at the alien sky. Behind them, voices echoed from the tunnel, but the opening was too small for armored soldiers. They'd have to find another way around. Marcus sat up, checking his scanner. The nearest human outpost was 10 kilometers northwest. With Kyra in her condition, it might as well have been 100. But there was no choice, they had to move. Can you walk? He asked. Kyra was already pushing herself up, determination overriding exhaustion. I am a centurion. I can do what is necessary. That's not what I asked. She met his eyes and he saw something in them he hadn't seen before, vulnerability and trust. With your help, yes. I can walk. Marcus stood, offering his hand. She took it and together they rose. In the distance he could see dust clouds, vehicles moving fast. The search was expanding, but they had a head start. 10 kilometers, Marcus said, pointing northwest. Difficult terrain, probably more patrols between here and there. But if we make it, we'll be safe. Safe, Kyra repeated as if tasting the word. And then what, Marcus Chin? I am Valerian. You are human. Even if we survive this day, we are enemies. Marcus looked at her, at this enhanced warrior who could have killed him a dozen times but instead had protected him, who had shown him that even in war, honor and compassion could exist. He thought about everything he'd learned in the last few hours, about the possibility that maybe, just maybe, this war didn't have to define everything. Maybe, he said slowly, we don't have to be enemies, I mean. He started walking, Kyra leaning on him, the two of them moving across the alien landscape together. Maybe if a human and a Valerian can save each other's lives, can work together, can see past the war to the person underneath, maybe there's hope for the rest of us too. Kyra was quiet for a long time. Then, so softly he almost missed it, she said, perhaps you are right, Marcus Chin. Perhaps your species' greatest weakness, this hope that persists despite all logic, is actually humanity's greatest strength. They walked on, two soldiers from opposite sides of a war, bound together by circumstance and choice. Behind them, the Valerian search party scoured the ruins. Ahead, the human outpost represented safety but also uncertainty. Neither knew what would happen when they arrived, how their respective sides would react to their unlikely alliance. But for now, in this moment, they walked together under an alien sky. A human medic and a Valerian centurion, proving that even in war, connection was possible. That mercy could be stronger than programming. That the bonds formed in desperation and trust could transcend the barriers of species and conflict. Marcus didn't know if they'd make it to the outpost. Didn't know if either of them would survive the next few hours. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. Saving Kyra Val Thorin had been the right choice. Not because it served a strategic purpose, not because it gained him anything, but because it was fundamentally human to help those in need. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to change everything. As they disappeared over the ridge, heading toward an uncertain future, the twin suns of Kepler 442b set behind them, painting the crystalline plains in shades of gold and amber. Two figures supporting each other walking toward hope. Together.